Heron had come up to replace Tom not long after Nanook had left him. "So, you got out of guard duty then?" Heron asked, seeming nonplussed about it. "I'll come back later, don't you worry." "Yeah, I'm sure. Don't mind having a favour in your court." He didn't sound convinced, but he didn't seem bothered either, so, oh well. Tom liked the guy. He was chill. Tom made his way down the tower and into the Nook's and Apuma's room. He knocked on the door and was invited inside. There he saw the old lady and Dakota standing in front of a large cupboard of sorts. It was very finely decorated, with carvings and the like painted white and blue, as was much of importance around here. "So, you had something to show me?" "Indeed. Yesterday you prevented me from committing a grave mistake. I thank you for that. It seems only fair you get to see what it was you saved and why it is so important." Nanook moved over and opened the large cupboard inside, which revealed a sparkling set of armour, unlike anything Tom had yet seen. It was full plate from tip to toe and absolutely beautiful, with detailed engraving and hammered-out patterns in the steel which shone like a mirror. It was smooth and elegant, interlocking plates seemingly flowing into one another. It almost looked form-fitting, in fact. Instead of chainmail, it used little metal scales to cover the neck and other weak points. The scales and many of the trimmings were made in the same deep cobalt metallic blue of their horns. As Tom looked closer, there were tiny runes carved into them. It looked like something straight out of the legendary items list of a fantasy game. "Oh my, that's pretty." "Why, thank you. This is my armour, my mother's armour and my grandmother's armour. One day it will be my daughter's armour, and so will this sword." She pulled out a pure white scabbard, again with blue trimmings and leather this time though. The hilt was that same ivory stuff he had seen on some of their other weapons, complete with gems in the pommel and the centre of the crossguard. She presented the hilt to Dakota, who drew it out. The blade was very thin, Tom thought, and it looked more like silver than steel. "Tom, this is a talon blade. It is forged from a metal called archivith, and is more than a little magical. It is the symbol of who rules this keep and has been for over a century. Following what we have been discussing, I believe it would make a suitable source of income to get you started. It would go to a collector in the capital who wasn't allowed to sell it, then I would buy it back later. You have done much for us already and promised much more. I was hoping this would help your efforts bear more fruit more swiftly. I'm sorry, Dakota, that was a stupid idea." "Don't worry, Mum, I get it. Though I'm still mad you didn't even ask me first." "I wanted it to be a kind gesture. He did save your life. Some could argue twice. I was wrong, though, and I am truly sorry." "No harm done. Had spices." Tom tried to lighten the mood a bit. Magic armor and sword made from magic steel. Might as well just call it mithril. It fit the description fairly well, after all. "For the record, that is coolest armor I ever saw. Back home be worth fortune. Is magic too?" "Well, it's worth a fortune here as well, and yes, it is heavily enchanted. It too is mostly mithril construction and is nearly impossible to dent, and even scratching it will be a hard thing to manage. Not to mention it negates impacts and helps weather both heat and cold." "Hold a cleft," Tom let out, not thinking. "Pardon?" Nanook retorted, pulling a smile. Dakota just smirked. "Sorry. Incredible, you would be nearly impossible to kill." "Well, not impossible, but it helps a lot." "Why not use it?" "Until Dakota decides she is ready to take over the responsibility of the keep, the armor is mine. I'll fight to defend the keep just as anyone else, but my days of going out in aerial melee are behind me." That seemed like an awful waste to Tom, but if such was the tradition, then so be it. "What about sword?" Dakota answered, juggling the blade around a bit. "Well, it is lighter and sharper than any normal blade. Stiffer too, despite being so thin. Raise your blade." Tom hesitated for a moment before drawing his blade. He had just gotten it, he didn't feel like losing it already. "Okay, what now?" "This." Dakota swung the blade, and as it reached Tom's blade, it went a little transparent, and passed right through his blade. He barely felt the sword move at all. She brought the blade back, and he struck his sword this time, knocking it to the floor. Tom being too surprised to remember to hang on to his sword. Incorporeal at will. Most don't see that one coming. Dakota let out with a smirk. A sword you can't parry? Okay, that was just cheating in Tom's book. He loved it. It's a hard blade to master, but if you manage it, you'll be the deadliest warrior on the field. But don't you use bow and knife? Tom questioned. Surely this would be better spent on a chook. Yes, but as I am the future lady of this keep, I am trained just as much in using the blade. I am not just a huntress after all. She better be, Tom thought to himself. He hadn't actually seen Dakota with a sword yet, but there had been a lot to do since he got here. Maybe she just didn't have the time. Tom had spent some time inspecting the equipment. It was clear there was a truly ridiculous amount of runes cut into both the sword and armor, all very small. The ones in the blade itself were very hard to actually see. If you held them in darkness, you could even see them glow faintly though. Not great for stealth, but Tom guessed if you had kit like this, you didn't worry about something like that. The craftsmanship was truly next level too. The stuff the dragonettes had was all well made aside from some of the junk in the armory, but this was just too perfect. He was guessing magic was involved on that front as well. Speaking of, what was his magic mithril metal? What is mithril? Tom asked. It's a magic metal made from silver and steel using some kind of arcane smelting process. I don't know the specifics. It's not like we can make it ourselves. Nanook answered. Guessing very expensive. Oh yeah, and very hard to work, Dakota added. Yeah, that made sense, Tom thought to himself, pondering what was before him. Did metal alloys act differently here? If so, he might have some trouble, or perhaps it was the magic forging they had talked about. But then, what made this stuff special? Why not just enchant steel? Nanook and Dakota both turned their heads, looking perplexed, as if they heard something. Then a bell started ringing frantically, and it was coming from down below? What do? He turned back to the two, pulling out his revolvers to check if they were loaded. That's the kitchen bell, they're inside. Damn it, Heron. Dakota, help me with this, will you? How did they manage that? Dakota questioned. How should I know? Nanook replied sharply. Well, Tom, time to see you on the ground then. Go say hello. Tom gave a quick salute, turning to leave frantically, loading the Marlin as he ran. How they got inside without being noticed? The windows here were narrow slits you couldn't get through. There was a fucking dragon in the greeting hall, and the door would be closed at this time anyway. That left the stairs, and the small platform at the base of the keep where the stairs went down from. That door was locked and barred by now, though. They couldn't have come from the towers or he would be fighting them right now. As Tom made his way down the stairs to the bedrooms, he heard the crackle and the bang of electricity. He concluded someone had made their way into either of the big halls. There was shouting coming from below as he sprinted down to the next level. He found a puma, ushering a group of children up the stairs to the upper bedrooms. What's going on? Tom demanded. I don't know. They must have gotten in the lower door. I don't know how. How many? Don't know, but quite a few, I think. Archer had just persuaded them to stay below the halls. Tom got around the old man and ran down the stairs with Esmeralda, Jackalope and Fengi coming up the other way. Go get gear, I buy time. They needed their weapons and some armor wouldn't hurt, but with a dragon in the greeting hall, how did they plan on getting up to the next level? Besides, what were they trying to achieve here? Sapphire came hobbling along with Wiperna helping her out. She wouldn't be much use in this fight. At least they hadn't caught her. He made it to the small balcony overlooking the grand hall. He could see Archon's head sticking through the big hatch, and he did not seem pleased. On the far wall he could see two big, burnt blue splotches, likely the source of the big bang from earlier. In the hall, most of the able dragonettes were to be found, minus those going to get their gear. Only some of them were armed, the armory being on the lowest level. As they stood there, it was clear the enemy wasn't going to try coming out again. Tom didn't like this. They were up to something. He needed to buy time for the others to get ready, but it seemed the enemy was doing the same. Do we attack or wait? Tom tried. We don't know how many there are. We are waiting for now, Shiva replied. Volson was looking rather nervous, Tom thought. He had his blade drawn, and his two remaining guards that were knocked down by the infirmary by his side. What do they want? Tom asked. We don't know that either, Shiva snarled back at him. Heron came charging down the stairs, but where was Kakashi? He had been the other guard on duty tonight. One by one, the Huntresses and guards began filling in as they waited. Nothing happening. The tension was killing Tom. Why were they just standing here? Why was the enemy doing the same? Can we go now? Tom tried again. He really didn't like the idea of letting the bastards get ready for them. By now, though, they most likely already were. Finally, Rachuk came down in full kit and started demanding to know what was going on. He did not seem pleased by what he heard. "Head count!" he shouted out. Tom's heart sank a little. Had they been taken prisoners? What if they were already getting away? Was this a hit and run? He kept quiet for now, though, as everyone tried to figure out who was here and who wasn't. Kakashi was missing, along with Volson's 2 bodyguards. Luckily, most had been in the upper levels getting ready for bed. Those in the kitchen had managed to escape, being followed by the 2 who were now decorating the wall courtesy of Archon. The dragon had retreated to cover the greeting hall, ensuring nobody came up that way. Then a puma had burst down the stairs. "We are missing 2 kids!" Oh no, they don't, Tom thought, checking he had one in the chamber. "That you are, and 3 wounded guards," came a male voice, shouting from the stairs leading down to the kitchen. "And unless you want that to become permanent, I recommend handing over the relic." "The what?" was Rachuk's response. "We don't have a relic. At least none that is yours, scum." Rachuk sounded genuinely confused by this, Tom thought. "Not you, dipshit. Volson. You know what you got." All eyes turned to the trader, who just went from a slight silver to white chalk in colour, shrinking down. The knife?" the trader stammered. "All this? For a knife?" The trader sounded mortified. "Well, in that case, handing that over shouldn't be a problem now, should it? If it's just a little knife." Was that what this was all about? Some little MacGuffin they wanted that Volson had? Oh, Tom would have some strong words after this, unless the others beat him to it. Judging by some of the looks around the room, they just might. Then Rachuk spoke up. "Might I ask what it is, since it has ended up in my keep?" "No, you may not," came the reply from down the stairs. "If you won't tell me, then I can only presume it is too dangerous to give to you." "Fine then. It is a religious artifact stolen from my home a long time ago." Yeah, Tom didn't buy that, walking up to Rachuk, talking into his ear. "No, it isn't." Rachuk looked a bit surprised by the gesture, but nodded. "Well, then I see no problem in that. I want to see your prisoners, though. Volson, bring the knife, will you?" Volson hurriedly scampered off into the greeting hall. "You seriously think I'm going to walk out in front of a storm dragon willingly?" "You know as well as him that he can't kill you without killing the prisoners too. Now quit stalling, and get up here, you coward." "Fine, but you know the deal. You try something, we kill them all." "Yes, I figured." Up the stairs came 5 darklings, 3 holding prisoners. Kakashi, Volson's Captain Tyborg, and the other escort, Dashu. No sign of the kids. The last 2 darklings flanking a figure clad in very fine armor. It was black as pitch, with gold or brass trimmings. He was holding a metal shield and a sword. His skin was as black as his armor, and the eye a deep red, the stark contrast to the faded dead eyes of the darklings. He looked like a bona fide cartoon bad guy, Tom thought. This wasn't the time for bad jokes, though. Tom had considered just firing immediately, but where were the kids? For now, he was kneeling, barrel-trained on the one with a knife at Kakashi's throat. What Tom wouldn't give for a squad of rifles right about now. Tom heard Volson come running back in. "Here it is." Rachuk replied, "Thank you. Now let's hear what your plan is here." "Simple. I take the relic, leave the heavy ones, take the kids, and leave them at the edge of the islands as insurance that you don't follow us. If you do decide to follow us, we keep the children. Not too convoluted." Tom wasn't buying that one either. He knew opening fire would mean death for all, but maybe 1 or 2. He looked around to see Fengi, Esmeralda, Jackalope, all pointing bows at the intruders. No Nanook or Dakota, though. Maybe the old lady had a plan. "Just how gullible do you think I am?" Rachuk replied. Thank God, Tom thought. He had been worried for a second that Rachuk actually believed this guy. "Well, would you prefer we just start cutting throats?" the lead figure replied. "It would give us an excuse to end you in short order," Shiva added, baring her teeth. "Oh, come now. I know you people. You won't let me just execute a kid. If the little one is right, this guy named Tom certainly won't. He said you were different. Looking at you, sorry lot, I'm guessing that would be you." The figure leveled his blade at Tom. Tom heard a deep growl coming from anger behind him. "You touch my kid. I'll make sure your body is never found." They had Kieran then. Why did it have to be him? "Oh, we have found the daddy as well. Okay then, big guy, what are you going to do about it?" Was this guy still stalling or just enjoying himself? Tom could honestly not tell, and he was not happy with either option. He was certainly mocking them. "No prisoners are leaving this keep," Relique stated. "You may take your knife and go, never to be seen again." Well, how am I supposed to ensure you won't just kill us the second you have your prisoners then? Maybe you should have thought about that before coming here, genius, Tom thought to himself. Tom certainly had no intentions of letting the bastard go now.